Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative.
They're asking me about everything, local, state, federal, all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Why can't I get a speed hump? What's going on with the consent decree? Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Ask Attica. We are here at the Black Coffee #2 in the Goodwill Opportunity Center. Always grateful for their graciousness to allow us this space to host this podcast. And of course, you're watching us on Stay Live Streams. Today, my special guest is Councilman J.P. Lyninger. Welcome, Councilman.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Listen, I wanted to get it right, so I wrote down my intro.
All right.
Okay, so today I am joined by someone who believes in accountability, community power, and progressive policies on Louisville Metro Council. He represents District 6, and District 6 stretches from Old Louisville and Shelby Park to Park Hill and U of L. And it's home to a diverse and engaged community. Trust me, I know. During his campaign and tenure, Councilman Lyninger has drawn on his experience as a longtime organizer and activist, including his work with the Democratic Socialists of America and local coalitions pushing for working class priorities in city government. In 2025, just last month, he sponsored one of the most consequential policies for our city, an amendment to Louisville's mask ordinance that sparked citywide conversation about public safety, accountability, and civic trust. So we'll talk about that some today. If you have questions for the councilman, drop them in the comments and we'll try to get to them. We'll also talk about his public service, his reflection on that ordinance effort, and how his work with Louisville DSA informs his approach to policy and community organizing. Councilman Lyninger, let's get right to it. So I want to start by asking you, what is bringing you joy today?
What is bringing me joy today? I get out of bed in the morning for the chance to talk to people about what we can do to build a better world. When I ran for office, I found out later that our campaign knocked more doors in the entire than any other race in the entire state. And that was for a Metro Council race here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I knocked about half of those doors myself, not just my canvassers and our team and our volunteers, because it really was my reason to get out of bed in the morning. I love to talk to people about how every member of this community has the power to change the world, but we can't do it alone. We have to do it together.
That's right. Thank you for that. And I'm not sure that people really understand the commitment and passion that it takes to run for office, especially when it's about more than you, the individual, and it's about the community and how you want to show up and serve community. So that's why you put in that work, right? Because it was about the people. So let's talk about your background. So how has your background shaped your approach to governance and representing District 6, and what motivates you to keep going? Because listen, I know Metro Council can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, and I think those are very related. I would not be doing this at all if I was not part of movement. If I wasn't trying to fight for the working class, build the socialist future, take care of everyone's needs, because we have the resources to do that. We're just not spending them towards the needs of the people. It's for the needs of the very few and the wealthy. And that's everything that I do. I'm here because I'm an organizer. These roles are not purely legislative. It's not just about what you can pass in those chambers. People need political leadership. People need someone that's going to go out there and say, this is wrong, what's happening now, and what are we going to do to change that? So being an organizer, being part of DSA, informs every single thing I do on council. That's also the way that I maintain my sanity in those rooms. When I was knocking doors for my election, I told people, there would be people who would take my literature. We talked about municipalizing LG&E, public ownership of a grocery store system, a municipal grocery store system, reallocating money from police and jails and spending them on social services and community needs and libraries and after school programs for kids. And there would be people who would take that literature out the door. They'd be talking to me and they'd say, this is great. They'd be mad at me. They said, you can't do this. And I'd tell people, you're right. I can't do anything myself. I'm just some guy. But what we can do together is everything. because I'm going to go to the Metro Council and I'm going to lose a lot of votes that first year. That first year, I'm going to get my butt kicked. All right. But what's going to happen from that is those people are going to have to vote. They're going to have to show the community, this is what I think about spending more money on schools and libraries. This is what I think about whether or not police should be able to wear a mask and hide their identity from the public. They're going to have to go on the record about what they actually believe. And then that literature that I ran on, I would tell people, I could go to so many other districts in this city and run on this same program because people know we need these things. And if everybody knows we need them, why don't we have them? So I'm going to lose those votes. Then I'm going to take that show on the road. And I'm going to go organize more people. And I'm going to take the people that we've organized already together. And we're going to say, hey, we need these things. Your council member won't vote for them. How are we going to get them to listen? Are we going to find someone who will listen? And that's the soul of what I want to do. I want to organize. And understanding that and understanding that I have people that I am in movement with, that's the only way I could do this. So
That's right. Powerful. And listen, y'all, I have a story I have to share about Councilman Lyninger. So there's someone who works at Metro Council, and the councilman just talked about knocking on doors and people getting mad at him because they're like, you can't do all these things. Well, this person told me that when Councilman Lyninger gets mad, you know it because the glasses go to the top of the head, and here we go. So look out for the glasses going to the top of the head, and you know it's on. So let's talk about the amendment. So the amendment would clarify that local, state, and federal law enforcement officials should not conceal their identity with masks. Now, although we know the council voted it now because they're weak, what did you learn from that process about public safety, accountability, and community trust here in Louisville?
Well, one thing I learned that I was honestly surprised to learn was how many people from local law enforcement were in favor of that. There are people everywhere in every position who understand that this is a public safety issue, that it makes everyone less safe, that everyone in those interactions, when you add a mask and a gun to a situation, that makes people afraid. That heightens every level of danger for everyone involved. And so that was really something that surprised me the most. As far as how it progressed and who was, amenable to what we were putting forward, there were not a lot of surprises, I'll be honest. I will be honest that I don't think everybody else is honest all the time about the things they say on the floor and why they vote one way or another. That's a little disappointing. I think it's important that people are the same way all the time, and that when you speak to someone in private and you say, this is what I think about something, and then when you get out there in front of everyone else, it should be the same answer. I try to be the same way all the time, and more fool me, I guess, that I'm talking to politicians and I'm surprised that they're dishonest. But isn't that a problem in our society? That our default idea of a politician, someone who is an elected servant, is that they're lying, that's like the standard joke about politics. It doesn't have to be that way, but unfortunately it is with a lot of these people.
So then that's why we need new people in office, right? We need folks to be running at every level for every office. And listen, folks, oftentimes when you run the first time, you may not win, but at least you got out there and you can run again. And you might have to run 3 times before you actually win office. Councilwoman Parrish Wright talks about that often, that she basically ran 3 times before she became a council person. When you believe in community, that's what you do. That's how you show up. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Councilman J.P. Lyninger. Listen, if y'all want to support Stay Live Streams, if you want to get the word out there about some event or program or project that you're working on, be in touch with Stay Live Streams so you can advertise on Ask Attica. We'll see you back here soon.
Healthy Business Connect Us empowers families to thrive through holistic well-being, early child development, and accessible health care.
We are committed to fostering connections, knowledge sharing, and support networks that enhance the physical, mental, and emotional health of children, parents, and caregivers.
By building bridges between healthcare providers, social services organizations, educators, and families,
we aspire to create a world where every child experiences a healthy and nurturing start.
Setting the foundation for a brighter future. Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Ask Attica with my guest, Councilman J.P. Lyninger, who represents District 6 on Louisville Metro Council. So welcome back, Councilman. So we're going to get right back into it.
Yeah.
All right, so how does your work with DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, inform your decisions on Metro Council? And how do you see DSA principles playing out in local policy and community power building?
So I always tell people when they ask me about socialism, I start with the idea that we need democratic control of our lives. We need democratic control of our unresponsive government. You know, we know that people out there have ideas about how our lives should be run that we're not listened to, like that healthcare should be a human right. Supermajority of Americans believe that, but we don't have that. So we don't have a government that's listening to us. We don't live in democracy. We don't have democratic control of our workplace. Workers don't get to make decisions, and the value of their labor is extracted from them, and it goes to owners who don't provide any value. And workers should make decisions about how their workplace and how their compensation works. And you know, I represent a majority renter district. Every neighborhood in District 6 is majority renter. And so the majority of my constituents go home to a literal landlord who tells them what they can do in their own homes. We need more democracy in our lives. And DSA, you know, when you are endorsed by DSA, that's a partnership that you are working with that organization where they're going to knock doors, they're going to donate to your campaign, they're going to be part of, you're in movement together. But you also are going to be in movement with them when you are in office. You're going to be talking to DSA about what are our priorities, what campaigns are we working on, how are we going to accomplish these things together. So, for example, Louisville DSA ran a priority campaign this past spring, the People's Budget. And what they did was they went out to community centers, they went to libraries across Louisville, and they had public town halls. And they asked people, what do you want to see in the budget? How has the budget failed? Where are we spending too much money? Where are we not spending enough? And so the community wrote a budget amendment, the People's Budget Amendment. And then they brought that to our office and they said, how can we codify this? How can we turn this into a legal document to go to the Metro Council? And we worked with them on that. And I introduced that amendment. And again, this was a chance for us to really ask people on the council, what do you really believe in when the chips are down? You can talk about we should spend more money on root causes of crime and violence, but if you aren't funding that, you don't really believe in it. That's right. And, you know, there were people who voted for it and there were people that didn't. I have a district advisory council that is expansive. There are 80 people that are involved with it in every corner of the neighborhood. There are neighborhood level meetings, and then people send representatives to a district level meeting where we talk about what are our priorities, you know, our needs in the community. When I do my discretionary spending, that goes through my advisory council. If Park Hill and Algonquin are 30% of the population of my district, 30% of my discretionary budget is decided by people in Park Hill and Algonquin for the needs of people in Park Hill and Algonquin. And so I want more democratic engagement in our lives, and I also want to make more organizers. I'm just some guy, and I really do believe that. And so to make real change, if I'm out there organizing and I'm trying to get people into motion, trying to get people involved in movement, I need those people to be organizers too. Yes. We need more and more people out there engaged in our community. And so, again, that's part of everything I do.
So you all also at DSA have been working on, I should say we, because I'm a member of DSA. Oh, I didn't do that disclaimer. I'm a member of DSA. Are working on a public transportation campaign related to TARC. And TARC has some fare increase conversations coming up in the next week. So can you talk some about that campaign?
Yeah, so the Get on the Bus campaign is a long-term priority of Louisville DSA, where we want to see public transit in Louisville that is fully funded, free at the point of service, and robust and meets the needs of the working class. I talk to people all the time about, you out in Jefferson County, you see signs in front of houses all the time, in this house we believe. And the first thing it says is climate change is real. If we believe climate change is real, then we better start riding the bus a lot more, riding bikes, walking, getting out of individual cars. We don't have a public transit system in Louisville that can meet those needs. We need public transit that meets the needs of the working class. People need to be able to get to work, need to go to the grocery store, need to go to school and get back, and have that be a reliable service. We don't have that right now. We need public transportation, like I said, to meet the needs for our environment. And lastly, we need public transit that's going to meet our economic needs. Without public transit, our downtown is not going to survive. And that is just a fact. We have lots of young people that live in my district that wish they lived downtown. If they were in another city, they'd live downtown, but they don't want to live in a downtown that you need a car to drive to St. Matthews to get your needs met. That doesn't work. And so, in every way, Louisville needs expanded, reliable public transit that can be an transit option of first resort instead of a transit option of last resort. At the end of the day, fare increases aren't going to do that. That will decrease the number of people that ride the bus, which is a huge metric in how much grant money TARC gets, how much money TARC gets from the federal government. It will be a drop in the bucket in terms of an increase in the budget. We need to change the way TARC is funded. The way TARC is funded has not changed since the 70s when Harvey Sloan, the mayor of Louisville at the time, created TARC. We need an increase in the occupational tax rate that's going to put more money directly into public transit, that it goes directly to TARC, that it doesn't, it's not Metro Council decides, it's not the state decides, that money belongs to public transit, which is a public good. And that's the only way we're going to get there.
And I'm going to lay at the feet of every level of government their failed responsibility to public transportation, right, and to TARC, because it's local government, it's state government. I served on the ad hoc transportation committee my first term in the state legislature, and there was no real commitment to public transportation. And at the federal level, we've seen that there has been little to no money that comes to our city for public transportation. So every level of government has failed our community as it relates to public transit. So I want to, before we go on another break, I want to ask you about looking ahead. And then we're going to come back and I still have a couple more questions for you. But looking ahead, what are your top priorities for the district? I don't like what's your one thing you're committed to? That doesn't make sense. Like, people don't live one issue lives. There's not one issue that we should be addressing. But what are some of your top priorities for the district? And then how can folks engage with you to help shape those priorities for the district?
So, one thing that we have coming up is that we do want to reintroduce the mask ordinance. There has been, some big events nationally that maybe people will have some second thoughts about their votes. One of the issues that came before us at the council when we had that vote was someone declared that it wasn't timely. I don't know that maybe that person will feel differently now on whether this is a timely issue. But we also want to, fight for other things. We want to get our feasibility study voted on at Metro Council for municipalization of LG&E to look at what the costs are. Something that's really exciting about taking ownership of LG&E. First of all, talking to people about it all. Lots of people don't even realize that we don't own LG&E. That is a private utility that's owned by a company not headquartered in Louisville, traded on Wall Street. When you pay your utility bill, that goes to shareholder profits. You're paying for a CEO's yacht. That's not what I want to do when I pay my utility bills. I want it to go to service. And LG&E could do a lot better in terms of that. And state law is on our side. The KRS is very clear that if we vote as a city to take control of LG&E, that's what happens, infrastructure and all. So the first step of that process is we need the feasibility study to come out. So we're going to be fighting for that. And we're also really excited to try to get people engaged. There's a program that's coming up from the city on changing the freight mobility plan. How trucks move throughout Louisville. This is a really big issue in Old Louisville because the streets are not designed to absorb heavy truck traffic. The homes in Old Louisville, the buildings, you've got the street that's concrete to a sidewalk that's concrete. Frequently, the building, the home, the apartments are right there, are also, connected stone to stone to stone. the vibrations are destroying some of these homes. We have, a historic preservation district in Old Louisville, which, is beautiful. And I really do love, living in Old Louisville in these old houses and these old buildings. If we're going to have historic preservation, we have to create an environment that's possible. And so it's important that we are conscious about, if these streets are not designed for trucks to make these turns. These streets are not, it's not safe to have trucks flying through Old Louisville with the blind corners and everything. And so we want to make sure that people are engaged in that process and that people are their voices are being heard. Again, I want more democracy in our lives. And that's something that's really important to people that live in Old Louisville. So I want to help them organize, people like the Old Louisville Mobility Coalition. I want to help those organizers achieve what they want in policy for our city.
Absolutely. Now, I wonder, are there any parts of your district that are experiencing what we're seeing, mostly in the west end of Louisville, where streets are being turned into two-way, traffic lights are being taken down, and stop signs are being put up? Can you talk some about that? Because I've been hearing a lot of complaints from folks, at least in other parts of the west end of Louisville, about how dangerous that has become.
Yeah, anytime that you've got a change in traffic pattern, that can be, a short-term danger as people get used to it. I remember when I grew up out in Fern Creek, but there was a road that they added stop signs to that briefly was more dangerous that there were stop signs because some people would act like there was a stop sign and some people wouldn't. In general, two-way conversions on the long term do make our streets safer. It slows traffic down. Which is the number one way that people can be safer on the streets, just be slower. I don't think we have any two-way conversions happening in the west end of our district right now, but we've got a process that's currently happening. Logan and Shelby, those are being converted to two-way streets. That's why when you go across them, there are all of these extra stop signs where there used to be lights. And eventually, 2nd and 3rd Street are going to be converted to two-way. And they're always done in pairs like that. That is a project that has federal funding, state involvement. I was just talking to the new executive director at Public Works about, when I was looking in the project file, I saw emails from David James 10 years ago about this. So that's how long it's taken. I think either last year or this year, there were federal funds that had to be spent that were already allocated, and it's use it or lose it. So that process is starting ever so slowly. Most people in my district are happy about the two-way conversion on 2nd and 3rd. They're mostly tapping their feet for, can it be finished on Shelby and Logan? Because while you're in the middle of it, it's, again, the uncertainty creates more traffic, concerns. But once it's finished, it will be more safe, and looking forward to getting that happening in 2nd and 3rd Street, too. And I'd like to see some protected bike lanes while we're at it.
So while I have you, there's something else that I've been hearing a lot about from folks, and that's AI data centers. And I understand there's a new AI director for the city. Can you talk about maybe some of what your concerns, hopes, fears, dreams may be? I don't know how you feel about AI data centers.
I think, first of all, the idea that we should put our policy decision making, or even the implementation of policy that affects people's lives, in the hands of someone who doesn't exist and can't be held accountable, I don't like that. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what AI is, what we call AI. What we call AI is just a language learning model. It's your predictive text on your phone. That's what we talk about, these AI chatbots, the generative AI for analyzing language, for your, we're talking about putting it into our permitting processes for things in the city. That's letting your phone's predictive text make decisions. I don't know about you. I'm sometimes frustrated by my phone's predictive text. Sometimes, I'll be typing it, it'll change out to or hour. And I'm like, no, out is a word, and it is the word I wanted to use in this sentence. So that's one concern. Is I don't really think that the technology does what people believe it does. The other problem is that it's an intensive use of resources. When we have a large reliance on generative AI in this country, in Louisville, in the state, that requires huge draws of electrical power and water use. Our clean water is going to go through for the cooling systems. It's a huge draw of electrical use. It's not really compatible with a sustainable future for these large-scale, hyperscale data centers. And they also have to go somewhere. And I don't believe that hyperscale data centers are going to go in Lake Forest. I think they're going to go in the communities here in Louisville where people already are dealing with environmental racism. I don't think that we need to add more problems for people in Rubbertown, which is where I think we're going to see a lot of it. So I'm actually pretty opposed. I don't think hyperscale data centers belong in our city. I don't think that they're meeting an important need. I think that there's a huge speculative market about what we're calling AI, a bubble that's going to burst. When we talk about economic development, I always ask economic development for who? These are not industries that are going to create a bunch of jobs and meet the needs of the working class. I'm skeptical top to bottom, and people in the community that are worried about these hyperscale data centers and what the effects are going to be for their city, I am happy to organize with them.
Okay. So I want to connect your ordinance to make sure that ICE agents are unmasked in our city to AI. So I read an article this week that talked about how newly hired ICE agents in 2025, many of them were fast-tracked through mandatory training because an AI system was used to identify these new hires and their experience. And any applicant that had law enforcement in their application at all, even if it was I was law enforcement at the mall, or I want to be in law enforcement, having never been in law enforcement, were fast-tracked and didn't get all of the training they were supposed to receive. So this is all connected, right? It's all connected. So y'all, we'll be back in just a moment with Councilman J.P. Lyninger. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to close out this powerful conversation, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you can connect with Councilman Lyninger to support some of the good work that he's doing on Louisville Metro Council. We'll see you in a moment.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
Hey guys, before we get back to the live stream, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality Bar and Grill, located at 3402 West Broadway. You guys got to come and check us out. You can call your order in, and the phone number is 502-822-1474. Again, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality. Come check us out, guys.
Healthy Business Connect Us empowers families to thrive through holistic well-being, early child development, and accessible health care.
We are committed to fostering connections, knowledge sharing, and support networks that enhance the physical, mental, and emotional health of children, parents, and caregivers.
By building bridges between healthcare providers, social services organizations, educators, and families,
We aspire to create a world where every child experiences a healthy and nurturing start.
Setting the foundation for a brighter future.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Ask Attica with my guest, Councilman J.P. Lyninger, who represents District 6 on Louisville Metro Council. We had a few comments and questions on Facebook Live, I believe. And so the first two questions, Councilman, or comments, and if you want to respond, please feel welcome to. But someone says that cutting money from police and jails is a terrible platform. So do you want to respond to that comment?
I'm happy to talk about that. First of all, if it was a terrible platform politically, I wouldn't be in office because I was very upfront about the things that I believe we need to do to make this a city for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Also, I actually have never actually introduced anything that would cut police spending. My entire spending for the People's Budget Amendment that came from that campaign from Louisville DSA, it didn't cut police spending. It kept police spending flat. We have doubled, more than doubled by this point, what we spend on policing and incarceration since the merger. I don't know about you. I don't think we're safer. I don't feel safer. This isn't working. We're not meeting people's needs on public safety by throwing more money at police and incarceration. And so all I said was, I don't think we should increase. We got, the year before I was in office, we had a historic increase in what we spent on policing. And I said, okay, let's keep it flat. Let's just not increase it this year. And some people erroneously believe that I proposed cutting police spending. Now, do I think we spend too much money on police? I absolutely do. I think we spend too much money this year, and I think we spent too much money the year before. But it's a big ship, and we can't turn it around overnight. But at the end of the day, we're not safer with the plan that we currently have of just throwing money at policing, and we need to spend some of that money, at least some of that money, on taking care of kids, giving them places where they are safe to be, where they have positive influences in their lives, meeting people's needs, getting people off the streets, getting people help that they need. That's what's going to make us safer.
And we need to talk about our elders who are hungry, and some of them are houseless, and we need to be taking care of them as well. And it's interesting. People hear what they want to hear, and they make up things. Yeah. So the other comment is that the mask ordinance was voted down because they have common sense. Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I think it's common sense that a masked man with a gun telling you what to do means you don't live in a free society. We have the power to say in Jefferson County, we don't let law enforcement wear masks at any level. People are doing this in other places across the country. Chicago has a blanket ban on law enforcement. The state of California has one that applies to some police, but not all. I think that actually makes it weaker. And that was actually one of the things that made ours one of the strongest proposals in the entire country and the most likely to hold up in court. I think that we see dangerous situations when people have, masks and guns mixed. And I think it's pretty common sense that we don't want that. And again, I'll reemphasize, lots of law enforcement agree with me. They don't like it.
Well, when you have nothing to hide, then what's the issue? And you talked about democracy, and one of the things I say often is that I'm fighting for a democracy, but not the one we have right now. Because to the point you made earlier, this is not a democracy that we live in. We need to envision what it can be, and it's not there yet. So the other couple of comments related to JCPS, and I do just want to say that Jefferson County Public Schools is its own entity. Louisville Metro Government does not, Louisville Metro Council in particular, that's what we're talking about, does not run or dictate to JCPS. But if you want to respond to any of your thoughts about JCPS, the comments here particularly were around employee job cuts, cuts to the safety administrator and to the schools. And then there's also the Kentucky lottery and the shortage of money and money not coming to JCPS. So if you want to respond at all to anything related to JCPS, that's up to you, of course. Yeah.
So the biggest problem with our schools is funding, and the way that our schools have been systemically underfunded by the state. And that goes back for years and years. Particularly, the transportation system for JCPS had an absolute mandate, and the state did not financially support enough, and that's what created the busing crisis. That the solution that they arrived at was no kind of solution at all, where you put our best schools behind a paywall and made it so that if you were not weren't going to your reside school, if you were going to a magnet school, you had to come up with your own transportation. That absolutely is inequitable. I cannot disagree with that more. We've got a situation right now where they're talking about closing the last elementary school in all of Shawnee. I went to King, and I went to the presentation that the superintendent had at Shawnee. I went with Robert Laverta-Spell, who's running for state representative in the district, and we heard from so many people, parents, administrators, teachers, kids at these schools, who are being harmed by this proposal. This is not the answer. Ultimately, we need more money in the system, but I can't agree with closing the only remaining elementary school in all of Shawnee. That does not make any sense.
And what elementary school did you say that was?
Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School.
Councilman, we're entering MLK weekend. I have a question for you about that. But entering MLK weekend, and you want to shut down King Elementary School.
Make it make sense.
It does not make sense, and I can't even. I don't even know what to tell y'all. I'm just going to leave it there because it's. Well, no, I have to say this. I'm disappointed in the people who are letting Marty Polio get away with the deficit that was created under his leadership and now trying to put all of it on the new superintendent. Marty Polio left knowing the real deficit that JCPS was experiencing, and now you have a new superintendent who has been tasked with trying to figure out what in the world to do about it. So that's an issue, that's a problem. And the city needs to be honest about that. And we need to have those conversations. It doesn't make it okay that there's a proposal to close King. I'm simply saying we got to stop allowing white men like Marty Polio to literally get away with over $188 million deficit for JCPS. And then you say that the man from Trinidad is supposed to come in and address all of those ills. So I just have to say that, and folks, please get involved with our school system. Please get involved. I'm so glad the parents were showing up at Shawnee, as they almost always do when there's something at Shawnee, because they care. So I want to get into my question about MLK. So as I said, it's MLK weekend that we're entering. I'd love to know how you're showing up for racial justice in the work that you do as we think about the legacy of MLK.
One of the things that I was very clear about when I ran was that the western portion of my district has been systemically disadvantaged, underfunded. When I knock doors in Park Hill and Algonquin, I'd go down Duminal and there'd just be stretches where the sidewalk was gone. That's not right. The people of the West End deserve the same kind of concern about their infrastructure, about their safety, about whether their needs are getting met as every other resident of Louisville. And I'm pretty committed to that. Like I said, we have a budget that is at the base of all of our problems in Louisville. Our budget is completely out of whack. It's not meeting people's needs. We have to take care of our community. And the only way to do that is if we are truly funding our priorities. We need to take care of kids in the West End. When you look at our problems with crime and violence, and there's a lot of people in Louisville who talk about crime and violence who it's a manufactured crime panic from the media for someone who lives in Lake Forest. But for some of my residents, they do have real problems with crime and violence in their community. And they know what's missing in their lives. They know what's changed over the last 30, 40 years in terms of programs that are available for kids, in terms of the money that was made available to fight poverty. At the end of the day, that's the most important change we can make, and it is the most important change we can make for the West End, is to get people the resources they need. 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So my last question for you is, the show is called Ask Attica. So do you have any questions for me?
Well, there is one question that I have in mind, but I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't get in trouble. When are you going to run again? We need you. We need you.
I appreciate that so much. I'm in this space right now where I want to support other people running for office. I think that's so important because I've seen too many people who hold onto these seats like they're trying to get blood from a turnip. It's like, come on now, let it go. You have served. It's time for other people to serve. There should be opportunities for anyone who wants to run and serve for them to be able to do so. The other thing I will say is that we need term limits. You didn't ask me that, but I just have to keep saying it because we do need term limits. No one should be serving 20, 30, 40 years. That's ridiculous. The goal shouldn't be the longest serving anything, whatever the case may be. Who knows? I might run in 2 years and 4. We'll see what the people are asking of me. I'm committed to civic education as well right now, just really trying to educate people about how government and politics works, because one of the things I learned in local and state office is that most people don't get involved because they don't know. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't know. They don't know how it operates. They don't know how it works. I don't want folks driving from Paducah to Frankfort thinking they can get into the House or Senate proceedings, and they can't because it's closed to us. The gallery isn't open. So I want to educate people about that and say, before you get on that road, let me tell you, you're not going to be able to sit in the gallery because there is no gallery, right?
Yes, I think that's great. Civic education in this country is, terribly neglected, and in my opinion, on purpose. They don't want the people to know. Exactly. So what you do really is important, and I am glad that you do it. I guess if I wanted to ask something else, if I can, I'd love to hear your reaction to the news that came out yesterday about the slate of endorsements and for the mayor's race and what that looks like for our city. Where do you see these races going?
Who said this should be called Ask Attica? I was asking for a friend. But actually, I've had people say your guest should have more time to ask you questions, so ask whatever. I'm not surprised at all. I don't even know that I should say disappointed, because that wouldn't be right. It's expected that the governor has endorsed Greenberg for mayor. I could probably count on one finger the number of times he's endorsed a black woman, a woman of color in a race where there was a white man or a white woman running. I probably could count on one finger. So at what point do we say the cult has got to stop, that there has to be accountability, that there have to be questions raised? I mean, you didn't ask me. Let me stop, because I was about to go on about the many ways in which racial justice is not a priority for some people in office. So that means we keep working, right? We keep showing up. We keep doing the work that we're supposed to do. I'm supporting Councilwoman Parrish Wright for mayor. And if people who believe in a different way forward for Louisville support her as well, she can and she will win. Stop saying, oh, I'm not going to support someone because they can't win. Well, you know how ignorant that sounds? If you don't support someone, they won't win. If you support them, they will. So support them with your money, with your time, with your vote. Okay.
I love that, because I tell people all the time that's the biggest hurdle to get over when you are running for office, is do people believe that it's possible? Because people want better things. They're just afraid to believe. They're afraid to put in their time and their energy and get hurt. It hurts to believe in something and it not come through. But truly, there's more of us. Yes. And if more people would take those leaps of faith and say, you know what, we're going to fight for change and we're going to keep knocking on that door until it's off the hinges, we'd have change a lot sooner.
Exactly. Well, Councilman, thank you so much for joining me on Ask Attica. I appreciate your questions. And I want to make sure that you leave folks with a way to get in touch with you, because I'm sure there are folks who are watching who are like, oh, I want to talk to Councilman Lyninger offline. I want to figure out how I can get connected to some of the campaigns he talked about.
Yeah. The number one thing, and this is for my own sanity, but if you go to the District 6 website, there's a Contact the Councilman button. If you click that and fill out the form, that means it goes to myself and my legislative assistant, and that way you don't get lost in the shuffle. There's a lot going on. I don't want to miss anyone's concerns, and that's the best way to get in touch with me. But also, if you go to Louisville DSA's website and check out the calendar, we just had a general meeting last night. Go to our electoral committee meetings. I'm frequently there. Because I'm a rank and file cadre member of DSA at this point. I'm just someone else in the room, but I will be there. And if you want to talk to me about what we can do to organize to change our city and our world, you can find me there.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And I do also want to say to folks, please reach out in more than one way, because like you said, you don't want people to get lost, when they reach out from the contact form. But y'all, it's not like yours is the only message that the councilman's receiving. So please make sure you reach out. I think we have another question before we go, or comment. So let me check here, if you don't mind, Councilman. Okay, so I believe this is in response to King Elementary potentially being closed, that they will be sending them to Maupin Elementary School, which is in Parkland, where we are. I'm not sure.
It's just not the same, when you talk about, that they've, combined, so like Whitney Young got combined with Englehart. Right. And, as the crow flies, we don't live in a, giant metropolitan area. This isn't Los Angeles. But when you take people from I can walk to the building And again, we don't have public transportation that meets the needs of the people. When you move people away from being able to be physically connected to the school, to go talk to administrators, to go talk to the teachers about what's going on with your kids, that creates barriers. You know, could they go further than mopping? Sure. But again, I just cannot imagine that if we've got a budget crunch, and again, closing these schools is that's not going to fill the budget hole. They estimate closing facilities will save them $5 million. Like you said, it's $180 million is the deficit. That's not going to cut it. And so why are we concentrating on a plan of closing facilities? First of all, I don't think that that's good policy, but particularly, how did we arrive at King Elementary is the school that needs to go? I cannot understand, looking at that map and saying there's one elementary school in all of Shawnee. That's got to go. I think we can find better solutions.
Thank you, Councilman. And to your point about King Elementary and them possibly going to Moppin in the Parkland neighborhood, which, I've done a lot with Moppin. I want to put that out there. Someone's comment is that and I don't have on my glasses, y'all, so I'm struggling here, to shut down King, where the location is in a beautiful green neighborhood, then, in all caps, sending kids to a school where there is a rail line that does carry hazardous chemicals and Anderson wood that has caught on fire multiple times, just doesn't seem the judicious path forward. Now, there's a comment here that you may want to respond to. The WEOP, the West End Opportunity Partnership, heard at every meeting, in all caps, that they hosted, that people overwhelmingly wanted funds to be used for youth and youth-centered organizations. This person says, I don't see them doing that. Do you want to respond to that at all?
One of the biggest problems that we have when we talk about the problems with the budget is we're starting a new one. We're starting a new big problem that's going to chase us for decades. And that is the move towards more tax increment finance districts, TIFs, and that's what the WEOP is. All of the West End now is a tax increment finance district. And what that does is it diverts any increase in property value taxes. Instead of going to the budget, it goes into a separate fund. So, it's, you can imagine, over time, property values go up, but for the next 20 years, what the city receives in taxes from those property values going up, you will pay more in taxes. Your tax bill still goes up, but instead of that money going to city services and taking care of sidewalks or community centers, it goes to this fund. And the people that are on the board of this fund decide how it's spent. And when you look at what happens policy-wise in Louisville, you can always joke, well, what happened in Chicago 20 years ago? Because that's what's going to happen today. Chicago carved their entire city up into tax increment finance districts. And one of the problems that creates is that's a huge hole in the budget. The needs of the city go up over time, just like those property values go up. It's the same curve. But your funding for the city stays flat. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the Paul that you're paying is frequently developers. That's what we see in Chicago, that these become slush funds for developers who are donating to political campaigns. They're the biggest donors in every city in America. Building developers are the number one donors to local politics in every city, and Louisville is no different. And so they donate to the campaigns, you create TIFs. The TIFs then make decisions on who is going to get those pots of money for development. You can see pretty easily, I think, you can connect those dots, follow that trail of breadcrumbs of why do we have them and who benefits. Why we have them is, that we need people, to get richer if they're going to donate to politics. And who benefits? It's not you, it's not me. It's the owning class.
And the developers donate to politicians who can't even get Museum Plaza off the ground, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So again, Councilman, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'm glad that we were able to get to some of your comments. Thank you for being flexible with that as well, Councilman.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. All right, y'all. Again, we're on Stay Live Streams live on Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to share this with folks. Continue to comment. And if there's anything that we see that needs to be referred to the councilman, we'll be sure to send it his way. And we'll see you here again next Friday, 12 o'clock on Stay Live Streams.
Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on Stay Live Streams.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.